If you watch till the end, you'll understand why some family secrets should stay buried. Miss it, and you'll never know what happened when my son from 50 years ago showed up at my door, demanding to know which of two men was his father, and why the truth turned out to be far more complicated than anyone imagined. Want to know which man was the father? Keep watching, because the answer is way more complicated than you think. Before we continue, please subscribe to help us move forward. Thank you. My name is Beatrice Kinsley. I live in a waterfront home in Clearwater, Florida, where the morning sun turns the ocean into liquid gold. Every day for the past 20 years, I've followed the same routine. Wake at 6. Make coffee. Water my orchids on the back porch while watching the pelicans dive for breakfast. It's a peaceful life, a quiet life, the kind of life you build after you've made your mistakes and learned to live with them. Or so I thought. It was a Tuesday morning in late September when my past finally caught up with me. The orchids were blooming, pale purple phalaenopsis, my favourites. I was adjusting the moisture level in the third pot when I heard my front door open without a knock. My daughter Sloane has always had a key. She's my youngest, 38 years old, with my stubborn jaw and her father's impatience. She works in genealogy research, the kind of work that involves DNA databases and ancestry trees, and questions better left unasked. I should have known she'd be the one to unearth what I'd buried. "Mum," her voice came from behind me, sharp and strange. "We need to talk. Now." I set down the watering can slowly, buying time. When someone says, "We need to talk," in that tone, you know your life is about to crack open. She walked onto the porch, holding a piece of paper like it was a weapon. Her hands were shaking. That scared me more than the anger in her eyes. "I've been researching our family tree," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "I submitted my DNA to one of those ancestry websites 3 months ago. I wanted to surprise everyone at Thanksgiving with our heritage. Maybe find some distant cousins. Something interesting." She placed the paper on the wicker table between us. It was a DNA report, technical language, percentages, a name I'd never spoken aloud in 50 years. "But instead," Sloane continued, "I found him. My eyes found the line before my brain could stop me from reading it. Vaughan Remington, relationship, half-sibling, shared DNA, 49.8%. The orchid pot slipped from my hands. It shattered on the tile, water spreading across the porch like spilled secrets. I watched the pieces scatter and thought, that's what's about to happen to my life. "Who is Vaughan Remington?" Sloane asked. Each word was a stone dropping into still water. "And why does his DNA say he's my brother?" I couldn't speak. My mouth opened. But 50 years of silence is a hard habit to break. Sloane pulled out the other chair and sat down. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying before she came here, I realized. Crying alone with this information, trying to make sense of it. "Please, Mom." Her voice cracked. "Just tell me the truth." So I did. "Before I married your father," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, "I got pregnant. I was 22 years old. I gave the baby up for adoption." The silence that followed was the kind that changes everything, the kind where you can hear your own heartbeat and wonder if the other person can hear it too. "You had another child." Sloane said it like she was testing the words, seeing if they were real. "And you never told us." It was 1973. Things were different then. "Different how?" Her voice rose. "Different enough to just abandon your own baby and pretend he never existed?" Abandon. That word landed like a fist. That's what she thought. That's what they'd all think. I was alone, Sloane. I was terrified. I made a choice that I thought was best. Best for who? She stood up abruptly. The chair scraped against the tile like a scream. "Did Dad know?" I shook my head. "So you lied to him for your entire marriage?" "For 43 years. I didn't lie. You just never told him the truth." "That's the same thing, Mum." She picked up her purse, her movements jerky with anger. "I need to call Margot and Elliot. They deserve to know they have a brother you threw away." "Sloane, please." She pulled out her phone, but then stopped. Her finger hovered over the screen. She was looking at the DNA report again, her brow furrowed. Wait. She looked up at me with new suspicion in her eyes. Who's the father, Mom? This was the question I'd been dreading for 50 years, the one that would make her understand how complicated it all was, or make her hate me even more. I don't know, I whispered. Sloane stared at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. What do you mean you don't know? There were two men. The words tasted like shame. I was with both of them within 3 weeks of each other. When I found out I was pregnant, I couldn't tell which one. Oh my God. Sloane backed away from me like I was contagious. You're telling me you were sleeping around and got pregnant and didn't even know who the father was? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Her voice cracked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you made some really bad choices and then spent the rest of your life lying about them. I wanted to explain. Wanted to tell her about Sterling Nash's controlling demands, about Dashiell Winter's intoxicating freedom, about being 22 and trapped between two versions of myself. But how do you explain the texture of a choice made 50 years ago? How do you make someone understand the weight of a decision when they're looking at you with disgust? I contacted him, Sloane said flatly. Vaughn. He messaged me through the genealogy website after we matched. He's been looking for you, looking for answers. My chest tightened. You contacted him? Without asking me? Why would I ask you? Her laugh was bitter. You gave up the right to privacy when you lied to this family for 50 years, when you abandoned your own child and moved on like he never existed. She headed toward the door, and I felt my life slipping through my fingers like the water from the broken pot. Sloane, please, let me explain. He's flying to Clearwater next week, Mom. Next Tuesday. He wants to meet you. He wants to know who his father is. She paused at the door, her hand on the frame. And I'm telling Margot and Elliot tonight. They deserve to know what kind of person their mother really is. The door closed. Not a slam. That would have been easier somehow. Just a quiet, final click. I stood alone on my porch, surrounded by broken pottery and spilled water and the ruins of the life I'd so carefully constructed. The orchids were still blooming, still beautiful, oblivious to the disaster unfolding around them. I had 7 days. 7 days before I'd have to face the son I gave away. 7 days before I'd have to contact 2 men I hadn't spoken to in half a century. 7 days before my 3 children learned that their perfect mother was built on lies. I looked out at the ocean, the same ocean that had been here when I was 22 and terrified, the same ocean that had witnessed all my secrets and kept them safe, until now, because secrets don't stay buried. They grow in the dark, and when they finally break through the surface, they bring everything up with them. The shame, the fear, the choices you've spent a lifetime trying to forget. I picked up the pieces of the broken pot, the sharp edges cutting into my palm. A small bead of blood welled up, red and honest. This was just the beginning. Let me tell you what happens when your children discover you're not who they thought you were. They gather, like wolves circling wounded prey. By 9 o'clock that same evening, all 3 of my children were sitting in my living room. Sloane had called them immediately, just like she promised. Margot drove down from Tampa. Elliot left work early in Orlando. They arrived within minutes of each other, their faces identical masks of shock and betrayal. I'd spent the afternoon in a fog, cleaning up the broken orchid pot, making tea I didn't drink, rehearsing explanations that all sounded like excuses. By the time they arrived, I'd given up on finding the right words. There were no right words for this. Margot spoke first. She's my oldest, 42, a corporate attorney with her father's measured temperament. Or so I'd always thought. Tonight, there was something cold in her eyes I'd never seen before. Is it true? She didn't sit down. None of them did. They stood in a line across from where I sat on the couch, a makeshift tribunal. Do you have a son you never told us about? Yes. My voice was steadier than I felt. Elliot, my only son, leaned forward. He's 39, works in hospital administration, usually the peacemaker. Not tonight. And you don't know who the father is? It was 50 years ago. I was young. That's not an answer. Margot's lawyer voice, sharp and precise. Who are the two men? I took a breath. Once I said their names out loud, there would be no taking it back. The secret would have shape and weight and witnesses. Sterling Nash, I said quietly, and Dashiell Winters. Sloane was already pulling out her phone, typing frantically. Within seconds, she had search results. Sterling Nash, federal judge in Miami, 71 years old, married to Patricia Nash for 45 years, 3 children. She scrolled. Dashiell Winters, author, age 69, lives in Key West. Multiple best-selling novels about, she paused, reading, about loss and family and things we can't get back. She looked up at me. How poetic. Did they know? Margot asked. About the pregnancy? No, I never told them. The room erupted. You've been lying for 50 years. Elliot's voice shook. He never raises his voice. To them? To Dad? To us? What else have you lied about, Mum? What else don't we know? Nothing. I promise. How can we believe anything you say? Margot started pacing, a sure sign she was processing something too big to stand still for. Our entire childhood. Every story you told us about your past. Every time you talked about meeting Dad, about your college years. All of it was built around this giant hole where the truth should have been. I never lied to you about... You just left out the part where you had another child? Sloane's voice was ice. That's not a small detail, Mum. That's not forgetting to mention you once had a different haircut. You had a baby, our brother, and you gave him away and never looked back. I looked back every single day. The words burst out before I could stop them. Do you think I forgot? Do you think there was ever a day I didn't wonder where he was, what he looked like, if he was happy? Do you think I didn't spend 49 years terrified this exact moment would happen? They all stared at me. I never cry. I've spent 5 decades being the strong one, the stable one, the mother who held it together no matter what. But tears were streaming down my face now, hot and shameful and 50 years overdue. Then why didn't you tell us? Margot's voice was softer now, confused rather than angry. Why keep it secret? Because... I stopped. How could I explain the shame of 1973? The way unmarried pregnancy was treated like a moral failure. The way adoption agencies told you it was best to forget, to move on, to pretend it never happened. Because I was ashamed. Because I thought if anyone knew, they'd see me the way you're all looking at me right now. Like you're a stranger. Elliot sat down finally, his anger deflating into something sadder. Because that's how I feel right now, Mom. Like I don't know you at all. Sloane was still on her phone, scrolling through something with an intensity that made me nervous. She'd always been the researcher, the one who couldn't let a question go unanswered. There's something about the adoption, she said slowly. Something strange in the records I managed to access. She looked up at me. Mum, when you gave birth, were you sedated? Yes. They gave me something. I was in and out. Why? Because the hospital records show irregularities, notes that don't quite match up, timing discrepancies. Her fingers flew across her phone screen. This hospital, St. Mary's in Miami, was investigated in 1974 for adoption fraud. They were accused of coercing young mothers, falsifying records, even... She stopped, her face going pale. Even what? Margot moved closer. Even separating twins and lying to the mothers about it. The room went silent. I didn't have twins, I said. But my voice was uncertain. They would have told me. I would have known. Would you? Sloane's eyes were intense. You were drugged, alone, scared. If they wanted to separate babies for adoption, to get double the fees from wealthy couples, would you have known? That's insane, Elliot said. But he didn't sound convinced. It happened, Sloane insisted. There are documented cases. Mothers who didn't find out until decades later that they'd had twins. Some never found out at all. How would we even know? Margot asked. DNA. Sloane was already typing again. If Vaughan has a twin out there, and that twin also submitted DNA to any genealogy database, they'd match as full siblings. Let me check his profile again. She stopped, stared at her screen. Mom, she whispered. There's another match. Full sibling to Vaughan. Female. Age 49. The world tilted. No, I said. That's not possible. I couldn't have. They wouldn't have. But Sloane was pulling up more records, cross-referencing, her genealogy expertise taking over. Look at this. Birth certificate filed at St. Mary's on the same day. Baby boy A. Vaughan Remington. Baby girl B. Name withheld. Sealed adoption. I have a daughter, I whispered. All this time I have a daughter. The tears came harder now. 50 years of grief I'd never let myself feel. Because you can't grieve properly when you're only supposed to mourn one child. But two babies taken from me while I was unconscious, given away without my full consent. Where is she? I asked. The other match. Where is she? Sloane clicked on the profile. Lennox Ashford, marine biologist, lives in Key Largo, Florida. Marine biologist. The career I'd abandoned when I got pregnant. The dream I'd given up. She became what I was supposed to be, I said softly. Margot sat down beside me, her anger momentarily forgotten. Mum, if they really took 2 babies from you without your knowledge, then the adoption wasn't fully consensual. Elliot finished. They lied to you, manipulated you, maybe even drugged you more than medically necessary. We need to contact her, Sloane said. Lennox. She deserves to know. And Vaughan, I added. He deserves to know he has a twin sister. First things first, Margot said, her lawyer brain engaging. We need to get those DNA tests done with Sterling and Dashel. We need to know who the biological father is. And then? I asked. Then we bring this family back together. All of it. No more secrets. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls that should have been made 50 years ago. The first was to Sterling Nash. I found his office number through the federal courthouse directory. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice clipped and professional. Judge Nash's chambers. Sterling, it's Beatrice Kinsley. A long pause. Beatrice. My name sounded strange in his mouth, like a word from a foreign language he'd forgotten. It's been 50 years, I know. Why are you calling? Because we need to talk. About 1973, about what happened between us. Another pause, longer this time. I don't see what good could come from... I got pregnant, Sterling. After we broke up, I gave the baby up for adoption. The silence that followed was so complete, I thought the line had gone dead. Sterling? Why are you telling me this now? His voice was tight, controlled. The voice of a man used to maintaining composure under pressure. Because the baby, he's a man now, 49 years old, found me through DNA testing, and he wants to know who his father is. And you think it might be me? I don't know. That's why I'm calling. I need you to take a DNA test. Absolutely not. The answer was immediate and firm. I have a family, a career, a reputation. I'm not going to let some mistake from 50 years ago destroy everything I've built. He's not a mistake, I said, my voice sharper than intended. He's a person, your possible son. Even if he is mine, which I doubt, I can't acknowledge it. Patricia would be devastated. My children would... He stopped. The answer is no, Beatrice. Don't contact me again. He hung up. 1 down. The second call was to Dashel Winters. I found his number through his literary agent, who connected me after I explained it was personal and urgent. Beatrice? His voice was older, but still familiar. Still the voice that had read poetry to me under Miami stars. Is it really you? It's me. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you 49 years ago. I told him everything. The pregnancy, the adoption, Vaughan, the DNA results, the possibility of twins. When I finished, there was silence. Then the sound of quiet crying. I have a son, he whispered. All this time, I had a son. Maybe a daughter, too. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. When can I meet him? Them? The question surprised me. No anger, no accusations, just a desperate need to know the children he'd never known existed. Vaughan is coming to Clearwater next week, and we're trying to contact Lennox, the possible daughter. I'm coming too. Today, I'll catch the first flight out of Key West. His voice was shaking with emotion. Beatrice, my wife and I, we tried for decades to have children. We couldn't. We've grieved that loss every day of our marriage. If Vaughan is mine, if Lennox is mine, he choked on the words. That would be everything. Dashiell. Sterling refuses to take the test. I don't know how we'll ever know for sure. Let me handle Sterling. We know each other. We've crossed paths in Florida legal and literary circles over the years. I can convince him. He threatened to cut off all contact. Then I'll make him an offer he can't refuse. Dashiell's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. If he is their father, he doesn't get to walk away from that. And if he's not, he needs to step up anyway and help us find the truth. What kind of offer? Let me worry about that. Just give me your address. I'll be there by this afternoon. Dashiell arrived at 4 o'clock, carrying a small suitcase and the weight of 49 years of not knowing. His wife Simone came with him, an elegant woman with kind eyes who hugged me before she'd even been introduced. I'm not angry, she said quietly. I'm grateful. You gave Dashiell something we thought we'd never have. A child. Maybe two. Whatever happens next. Thank you. We sat in my living room. Me, my 3 children, Dashiell and Simone. Waiting. I called Sterling, Dashiell said. Told him everything. At first he refused, just like he did with you. What changed his mind? Margot asked. Dashiell smiled, but there was no humor in it. I did some research. Found out that Sterling's 3 children aren't biologically his. He's infertile. Has been since his 30s. His wife, Patricia, used a sperm donor for all 3 kids, but they never told the children. It's their secret. You blackmailed a federal judge. Elliot's voice was somewhere between shocked and impressed. I gave him a choice. Take the DNA test voluntarily, or I'd make sure his secret became public knowledge. Starting with his children, who deserved to know the truth. That's, Sloane started. Exactly what needed to happen, Margot finished. Good work. He's taking the test today, Dashiell continued. Results in 72 hours. In the meantime, have you contacted Lennox? Sloane reached out through the genealogy website, I said. She's driving up from Key Largo. She'll be here tomorrow. And Vaughan? He changed his flight. He'll be here tomorrow too. I looked at Dashiell. You might meet both of your children in the same day. His eyes filled with tears. I never thought I'd have this. Never thought I'd be a father. You don't know for sure yet, Simone said gently, squeezing his hand. The DNA results might— I know, Dashiell interrupted. I can't explain it, but I know. They're mine. I can feel it. The next day, at noon, Vaughan arrived first. He was tall, maybe 6'1", with dark hair going silver at the temples. He had Dashiell's intense eyes, I realized immediately. That same depth of feeling. Sterling had always been more surface, more performance. Vaughan had soul. Mrs. Kinsley? His voice was deeper than I'd imagined during all those years of wondering. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I stood. Vaughan, please come in. He stepped inside, his eyes moving from face to face. Margot, Sloane, Elliot, the siblings he'd never known. Then his gaze landed on Dashiell, and something passed between them. Recognition. Connection. You must be one of the two, Vaughan said quietly. Dashiell Winters. And yes, I might be your father. They stared at each other for a long moment, 2 strangers connected by biology and decades of absence. You look like my brother, Dashiell said, his voice thick with emotion. The way he looked when we were young. He stopped, overcome. Before anyone could say more, the doorbell rang again. Sloane opened it, and there stood Lennox. She had my face, my eyes, my wild curly hair that had driven me crazy my whole life. She was wearing a t-shirt with a sea turtle on it, cargo pants, and the weathered look of someone who worked outdoors. She looked at me, and I looked at her, and 50 years of separation collapsed into nothing. Mum? She said, testing the word. I couldn't speak, just opened my arms. But Vaughan moved first. He walked toward Lennox like he was in a trance, and she turned to him, and they both stopped 3 feet apart, staring. You're my twin, Vaughan whispered. I can feel it. I felt like half of me was missing my entire life and— Me too, Lennox interrupted, tears streaming down her face. Oh my God, me too. They crashed into each other, holding on like they were afraid the moment might disappear. Two halves of the same whole, finally complete. I watched them, both of my lost children, reunited after 49 years, and felt something break open in my chest. Not breaking in a bad way, breaking like dawn breaks, like spring breaks through frozen ground. I'm a marine biologist, Lennox said when she could finally speak, pulling back to look at Vaughn. I work with sea turtles. What do you do? I'm an environmental lawyer. I protect ocean habitats. They both laughed, the synchronicity too perfect to be coincidence. We both work to save the ocean, Lennox said, then turned to me. Did you? Did you love the ocean too? It's what I studied in college, I whispered. What I gave up when I got pregnant with you. Both of you. You gave it up? I thought I had to. But you didn't. You both followed the dream I couldn't. I touched Lennox's face, still not quite believing she was real. You became what I was supposed to be. Dashiell stood, moving toward the twins. I don't know yet if I'm your father. The DNA results won't be back for 2 more days. But I want you to know, both of you, that if I am, I want to be part of your lives. If you'll have me. Vaughn and Lennox looked at him, then at each other, then back at him. We'd like that, Vaughn said quietly. Even if you're not our biological father, the fact that you're here, that you care enough to find out, that means something. It means everything, Lennox added. Those 72 hours felt like 72 years. We spent the time getting to know each other. Vaughn and Lennox told stories of their separate childhoods. Good parents, happy homes, but always that sense of something missing. They compared notes, finding uncanny similarities. Both had been drawn to the ocean from childhood. Both had recurring dreams of floating in darkness with another presence nearby. Both had felt incomplete in ways they couldn't explain. It was like phantom limb syndrome, Vaughn said, but for a person instead of a body part. My 3 other children, Margot, Sloane, and Elliot, embraced their new siblings with an openness that surprised me. There was no jealousy, no resentment, just curiosity and the beginning of genuine affection. We lost 49 years, Margot said to Vaughn and Lennox over dinner one night. I don't want to lose any more time being angry about it. Dashiell and Simone stayed at a hotel nearby, but they came to my house every day. Dashiell would watch the twins with wonder in his eyes, clearly hoping they were his. Simone bonded with both of them immediately, asking about their lives, their work, their hopes. Whatever the DNA says, Simone told me privately, they're family now. We'll be part of their lives either way. Sterling never called, never came. His DNA sample had been sent to the lab, but he remained absent from the unfolding reunion, hiding behind his walls of respectability and fear. On the 3rd day, the email arrived. We gathered in my living room, all of us this time. Me, my 5 children, Dashiell and Simone. 8 people waiting to find out the truth. I opened the email on my laptop, read the results silently first, making sure I understood them before reading aloud. My hands were shaking. Vaughn Remington and Lennox Ashford share 49.9% DNA with Dashiell Winters. Results consistent with biological parent-child relationship. Dashiell made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. They're mine. They're both mine. There's more. I continued reading. Comparison with Sterling Nash sample shows no biological relationship beyond normal human baseline. Sterling Nash is excluded as biological father. The room erupted in a chaos of emotions. Dashiell was crying. Simone was crying. Vaughn and Lennox were holding their father for the first time. My 3 other children were hugging and laughing and crying all at once, and I sat in the center of it all, watching 50 years of secrets transform into something beautiful, something whole. Dashiell finally pulled away from the twins, wiping his eyes. I have children, he said to Simone. We have children. 2 beautiful grown children. She agreed, pulling Vaughan and Lennox into her arms. Welcome to the family. Later that night, after everyone else had gone to bed or back to hotels, I sat alone on my back porch with Vaughan and Lennox. The ocean stretched out before us, dark and endless under the stars. I need to tell you something, I said, about the adoption, about what they did to me. I told them about St. Mary's Hospital, about being sedated against my will, about waking up and being told I'd had one baby boy, never knowing there had been two, about the adoption agency that had pressured me, lied to me, separated twins for profit. They took you both from me before I was even fully conscious, I said. I never got to hold Lennox at all. I only held Vaughan for 10 minutes before they said I needed to say goodbye. They told me it would be easier if I let go quickly, that I'd heal faster if I didn't bond. That's horrible, Lennox whispered. It was common practice then. For unmarried mothers. We weren't seen as real mothers, just vessels who'd made mistakes. They treated us like criminals, instead of scared young women who needed help. Did you want to keep us? Vaughan asked. If you'd known there were two of us, would you have tried? I thought about that. Really thought about it. I don't know, I admitted. I was 22, with no money, no support, no job. My family had disowned me. Sterling had moved on. Dashiell didn't know I was pregnant. Keeping one baby would have been nearly impossible. Two? I shook my head. I tell myself I would have tried, but honestly, I don't know if I could have survived it. But you wanted us, Lennox pressed. You didn't just throw us away. I wanted you more than anything. That's what made it so hard. The adoption agency convinced me that wanting you wasn't enough, that love wasn't enough, that you deserved parents who were married, financially stable, ready. They made me believe that giving you up was the most loving thing I could do. Was it? Vaughan's voice was quiet. I don't know. You both had good childhoods, good parents. Would you have had that with me? Maybe not. But you would have had each other from the start. You would have grown up as twins. You wouldn't have spent 49 years feeling incomplete. I looked at them both. There's no right answer, just choices and consequences. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the waves. I forgive you, Lennox finally said. For what it's worth, I forgive you. Me too, Vaughan added. You were a victim of that system too. You didn't choose to have us separated. You didn't choose to forget. They chose that for you. Their forgiveness felt like absolution I didn't deserve, but I accepted it anyway, letting it wash over me like the ocean breeze. What happens now? I asked. Now we move forward, Vaughan said. All of us, as a family. A weird, complicated, found and lost and found again family, Lennox added with a small smile. But a family nonetheless. I looked out at the ocean. The same ocean that had witnessed all my secrets. The same ocean my children had both been drawn to without knowing why. Maybe that was the real truth. Not the DNA, not the father's identity, not even the circumstances of their birth. The truth was simpler and more profound. We were family. We had always been family. And now, finally, we could be family together. Tell us about the ocean, Lennox said softly. Tell us about your dream. The one you gave up. So I did. And as I talked about marine biology and sea turtles and coral reefs, my daughter's eyes lit up with recognition, and my son nodded with understanding, and I realized that even though they'd grown up without me, they'd carried pieces of me with them all along. Some connections run deeper than DNA, deeper than time or distance or secrets. Some connections are written in the stars and the tides and the very marrow of your bones, and no amount of separation can break them. The restaurant overlooks the Atlantic in Key Largo, where Lennox now runs a sea turtle conservation program. We're all here, my 5 children, their families, Dashiell and Simone, even my ex-husband Robert, who took the revelations better than anyone expected, saying, I always knew you had secrets, B. I just didn't know they'd turn out this interesting. Sterling never came around. He sent a lawyer's letter acknowledging the DNA results excluded him as father, expressing relief and requesting no further contact. We honored that request. Some people aren't ready for truth. But the rest of us? We built something new from the broken pieces. Vaughan and Lennox are inseparable now, making up for lost decades. They've co-authored 2 papers on ocean conservation and are planning a joint research expedition to study coral reef restoration. They finish each other's sentences, share the same laugh, move in sync, like they've known each other forever. Because in a way, they have. Margot, Sloane, and Elliot treat them like they've always been part of the family. There's a group chat now, all 5 siblings, that pings constantly with memes, life updates, and plans for the next gathering. Dashiell is the father he never thought he'd be. He and Simone have embraced their role completely, showing up for everything. Birthdays, holidays, random Tuesday dinners. He wrote a book about it all, with our permission. It's called The Children of St. Mary's, exposing the adoption fraud practices of the 1970s. The book sparked a movement. Other mothers have come forward. Other twins have been reunited. A class action lawsuit is pending. As for me, I went back to school. At 71 years old, I'm finishing the marine biology degree I abandoned 50 years ago. Lennox is my unofficial advisor. We spend weekends in her lab, studying sea turtle migration patterns, making up for all the years we should have been doing this together. I still water my orchids every morning, but now I do it with my daughter beside me, teaching her the proper moisture levels, sharing the peaceful ritual. And sometimes Vaughan joins us, and we drink coffee on the porch and watch the pelicans dive. And I think about how secrets don't just destroy, they also protect us until we're strong enough to face the truth. The shame I carried for 50 years has transformed into something else. Not pride, exactly, but acceptance, understanding, compassion for the 22-year-old girl who did the best she could with impossible choices. "Mum," Lennox says now, pulling me from my thoughts. We're at the restaurant, celebrating her conservation program's 1-year anniversary. Speech time. Everyone's waiting. I stand up, looking around the table at my assembled family. 5 children, 2 daughters-in-law, 1 son-in-law, 3 grandchildren I'm just getting to know, Dashiell and Simone, Robert and his new wife, all of us connected by biology and choice and love and forgiveness. A year ago, I begin, I thought my life was over. I thought the secrets I'd buried would destroy everything, and in a way they did. They destroyed the lies, the pretense, the careful construction of who I thought I needed to be. I look at Vaughan and Lennox, sitting side by side like bookends. But what grew from those ruins was something I never imagined. Not just a family reunion, but a reckoning. A chance to face the worst thing I'd ever done, giving you away, and to understand that it was also the most complicated thing I'd ever done. Not simply good or bad, but human. Tears prick my eyes, but I keep going. The adoption industry lied to me. They manipulated me. They took 2 babies from me and told me I only had 1. They made me believe that forgetting was the same as healing. For 50 years I believed them. But here's what I know now. You can't forget love. You can bury it, hide it, pretend it doesn't exist. But it stays. It grows roots. And eventually, it breaks through the surface and blooms. I raise my glass. To family. The ones we're born into, the ones we lose, and the ones we find again. To truth, however painful. To forgiveness, however undeserved. And to second chances, because some of us are lucky enough to get them. To family, everyone echoes, raising their glasses. As the dinner continues and conversations bloom around me, I slip outside onto the restaurant's deck. The ocean stretches before me, vast and eternal. The same ocean that witnessed my shame, my secrets, my silence, but also my redemption. Footsteps behind me. Vaughan and Lennox, flanking me on either side. "You okay, Mom?" Lennox asks. I'm better than okay. I put my arms around both of them. I'm complete. So are we, Vaughan says quietly. We stand there together. 3 people who should have known each other for 49 years, but are making up for lost time. 3 people shaped by the ocean, drawn to its mysteries. finding peace in its rhythms. Tell us something, Lennox says. Something true, something you've never told anyone. I think for a moment, then smile. When I was 22 and pregnant and terrified, I used to go to the beach at midnight. I'd stand in the water up to my knees and talk to you, both of you, even though I didn't know you were twins. I'd tell you about the world you were coming into, the ocean you'd hopefully get to see, the adventures I hoped you'd have. What else did you tell us? Vaughan asks. I told you that even though I couldn't keep you, you'd always be mine. That somewhere in the world, under the same moon and the same stars, we'd be connected. That love doesn't need proximity. It just needs to exist. You were right, Lennox says, squeezing my hand. I was lucky, I correct. So many mothers never get this, never get to meet the children they lost, never get to say I'm sorry, or I love you, or look how beautiful you turned out. Then let's not waste it, Vaughan says. Let's make the most of whatever time we have left. Deal. I agree. We go back inside, back to the noise and laughter and complicated, beautiful mess of family, back to the second chance I never thought I'd get. And as I look around the table at all these faces, some familiar, some new, all precious, I realize something profound. The story I thought ended 50 years ago was really just beginning, because secrets don't stay buried forever. They break through the surface and bloom into truth. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that truth transforms into something more beautiful than the lie ever was. Sometimes it transforms into forgiveness, into family, into home. This story is dedicated to the countless mothers who were coerced into giving up their babies during the baby scoop era, 1945-1973, when unmarried mothers were systematically pressured, shamed, and lied to by adoption agencies, hospitals, and society at large. Many of these women were told their babies died, or were sedated during delivery, and never given a chance to make an informed choice. The practice of separating twins and lying to mothers about multiple births was real and devastatingly common. Thousands of twins were separated for adoption, growing up never knowing they had a sibling. Some have been reunited through DNA testing decades later. If you or someone you know was affected by forced or coerced adoption, resources and support groups exist. You are not alone. Your story matters, and it's never too late to seek truth, healing, and reunion. For more information about adoption reform, search for Baby Scoop Era and Adoption Reunion Registries. Thank you for staying with me until the end.